Lowe's management made false statements to fire me. Basically, they said their decision was based on proof from a surveillance video and or screenshots from that video, but refused to show me. In fact, the store manager told me the video was intellectual property that belonged to the store. As far as I know, surveillance video is not intellectual property. It's not an intangible creation of human intellect or any kind of trade secret. The only secret was they didn't want me to see it and prove them wrong. Days after I was fired, I sent an email and spoke with Lindsay, the HR manager, fully explaining my side of the story and pleading with them to give me my job back. Here's one of the nice things she said.
And I mean, honestly, it doesn't have anything to do with, you know, your work ethic or anything like that, because you are and were a hard worker while you are here, and any of the management team will tell you that.
When those efforts to get my job back failed, for the first time in my life, I filed for unemployment. Lowe's challenged my unemployment by sticking with their false statements. Therefore, I was disallowed benefits. The next step was to go through an appeal process. That's when things changed. I was provided with a package including documents and images pertaining to my termination. I've pieced together the most relevant portions of my appeal hearing. Notice how at the end of this, Lindsay changes her story.
Ms. Hagedorn, can you tell me why Mr. Sweet's no longer working for Lowe's?
Yes, ma'am. It was brought to our attention on February the 15th by another employee that Curtis approached her and reached for her nose ring, at which point she kind of like pushed him away and said, "Don't grab me," and he continued to attempt to grab her as well as like approach her in an unwelcoming manner. And then after that event, he still stayed by her side at the register while she was trying to check out another customer, which made her feel extremely uncomfortable. My store manager and ASM then met with Mr. Sweet to ask him his side of the story, and he basically just simply said that it didn't happen and didn't provide any additional information regarding the events. So the decision was made to end his termination to end his employment based on that employee's statement, as well as the feelings that she was made to have by Mr. Sweet, and his lack of statement, as well as pictures that we have attached to the termination sheet. So I would like to see if we can admit that as evidence. It's page 9 all the way through page 19.
Okay, page 9 is the Employee Corrective Action Report. This would be the separation document, Ms. Hagedorn?
Yes, ma'am. And then attached behind that are the pictures as well as the statements of the employees that met with Curtis.
All right, I'll mark page 9 first as Employers Exhibit 1.
Okay.
And Ms. Hagedorn, is this your signature at the bottom of the page?
Yes.
Were you the one who prepared the document?
Yes.
Ms. Hagedorn, who went over the video?
LP and myself.
I'm sorry, who's LP?
LP, Loss Prevention. It's our Loss Prevention department.
Had Mr. Sweet had any other issues prior to this incident?
He was on a final from a safety incident that happened quite a ways ago, but that had fallen off his record.
So when you say he was on a final, but then you say it had fallen off his record.
Yeah, the finals are only valid for 12 months, so he was on that final on 11/22/16, so as of 11/22/2017, it was no longer on his record.
Can we go to the top image on page 11?
In your question?
Lindsay had said that I did touch her nose. And when I look at this page 11 at the top image, I just want to ask Lindsay, do you see my fingers?
I don't recall stating that you actually grabbed her nose. In our conversation, I stated that you were attempting to grab her nose. No, you cannot see your fingers in that picture. However, if you look at the bottom of page 11, you'll see that she's pushing you away. And if you look at the top of page 12, you'll see that you're continuing to reach at her and grab her. And on top of page 13, you'll see that you almost have her in a bear hug from behind.
Okay. Do you see Ashley's nose? I just want a yes or no question. Do you see my fingers? Do you see her nose?
Yes, she's answered that, sir.
No.
Okay. What I'm getting at is how could she have said that she saw me touch her nose? You know, I thought that we were on kind of a joking basis. There was a time when she was crying, and I asked her if she was okay. And to make the story short, a few days later, I asked her how she was doing again, and because her boyfriend was apparently saving money to leave her, and then she said that he only saved like $80-some bucks, and we kind of both joked that, you know, that wasn't enough money to really do much with. So I thought that Ashley was a friend in a way. And
Ashley, just to clarify, Ashley was the one who made the complaint that you were trying to touch her nose ring?
Right.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Right. Okay. And so, you know, I thought she was a friend. I wouldn't try to hurt her. When it comes down to the incident here that happened, and really, what I really wanted to see was this video to kind of prove my point, is that there was a statement made on, let me go to this page here, on number 9, it says Curtis was made aware the coworker was uncomfortable and continued touching and grabbing at her nose. If I had the video there, it would definitely be able to see if I made multiple attempts at grabbing her nose. What happened was, in the same motion as when I said, hey, your nose ring is crooked, let me straighten that out for you, I was kind of somewhat reaching towards her nose, and I would never have touched her nose. I kind of grew up with that whole saying, you know, about you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. I wouldn't have touched her nose. And if I wanted to touch her nose, I'm sure I would have, or could have. And when she kind of backed away and you know, I was totally surprised by her reaction. And by me standing there watching her, she was talking, and if I were to walk away, would I have been in better shape according to what Lindsay said, or do you stand there and listen to what someone has to say? I mean, I felt terrible. I didn't want to offend her or anything. I was apologetic. And
so
even
sir, what was her reaction that you said that you were surprised by?
She just kind of reached her arm across and said, no one touches my nose. She didn't touch me. I didn't touch her. Nothing like that. And other than the whole, nobody touches my nose, I don't really recall any of the other words that went along with that, because it's mostly you kind of pay attention to their emotions. That was a while back, so I don't recall everything else that was said, but you know, so I wanted to hear her out.
And so after she said that she didn't want you to touch her nose, did you make any other approaches toward her?
No, and that's why I wanted to see the video, because like Lindsay said, I tried to grab her, and I didn't touch her.
And what about the where Ms. Hagendorn reference said it looked like you had her in a bear hug, almost in a bear hug? The picture on page 13. On
page 13, does it show my arms around her? When the view is, like I said, I wish there was other views of this. I did not grab her in any kind of a bear hug or anything. I didn't even touch her.
And had she told you to leave the area?
No.
So when the customer comes up on page 14, why were you there by the cash register?
At that time, things kind of calmed down, and I don't know if the customer was engaged in a conversation with me or exactly how that happened, but I was only there for a few seconds and departed from the customer and Ashley, and it was really wasn't a big deal.
Were you aware that you could be discharged for attempting to touch her nose ring?
Again, I did not attempt to touch her nose ring. It was just a joking, playful manner. I would not have touched her nose. Is Lowe's not willing to provide that video?
And you're asking
we don't show video.
Yes.
Yeah, typically we don't show video to terminated employees, number one. Number two, yes, we would have been willing to provide the video to the unemployment office. However, the system was down and we were unable to burn the video.
So when I read these things from Ray and Cato, it says that I admitted to touching or attempting to touch her nose ring. Those are false. I didn't admit to that. I admitted to reaching towards her nose. I found it interesting that my written statement on that day was not included in the package sent to me. If I remember correctly, I wrote that I reached towards her nose in a joking and playful manner. I'd like Lowe's to provide my written statement for the tribunal appeal process. Lindsay, do you have that written statement?
I do have that statement, but I don't believe that it can be admitted at this time since it wasn't originally sent in.
Can you read it by chance?
And ma'am, was there a reason why it was not sent in?
It was submitted to our third party. I have no idea why it's not in the packet. I'm more than willing to read it if that's okay with the hearing officer.
I'll allow it. Go ahead, please.
It says, I, Curtis Sweet, in a playful, joking manner, reached towards Ashley's nose ring. I did not touch it. She told me not to touch her nose ring, and I apologized. I assured that Ashley and I had the kind of relationship/friendship that we could joke around. I would never intentionally hurt or cause Ashley problems with her. I feel bad about the situation. And then just signed it February 18th.
Is that accurate, Mr. Sweet?
It is, and the reason why I wanted her to read that or acknowledge that is because of the testimony from Cato and Ray.
Okay, there's no testimony from Cato and Ray.
Well,
You're not here.
Those emails, I'm sorry. Those emails from her on 15, 16, and 17. Because they say that I admitted to reaching towards her nose ring or whatever, however they worded that. And what my testimonial was in writing was the same as what I was telling them in person during that meeting.
Okay.
Can I bring up one more thing? Is that on page 10, which would have been the content for that page 11 top image, it says Curtis appears to grab Ashley's nose ring. So even the LP guys who wrote that, I'm sure, said it appears. So it's not saying that he actually did touch, in my mind. And what gets me is that in the first meeting with Ray and Cato, they didn't have a definite. He did touch her nose, and then suddenly when they go to terminate me, both Ray and Lindsay said that I did touch her nose. And it said that in a bunch of documents.
They're not here to give testimony. The Ray and Tyler.
Right.
And they're not here, so. And the pictures that have been entered, the screenshots, those will speak for themselves. Ms. Hagedorn, do you have questions, Mr. Sweet?
I just have one. The perception of the victim was that Mr. Sweet was attempting to grab her nose. So, Curtis, what would you qualify the difference in you stating that you were reaching towards her nose versus attempting to grab her nose?
If I attempted to grab her nose, I would have actually grabbed her nose. The intention was to fall short of touching her nose. Like I said, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. I wasn't going to touch her nose. That's kind of a gross thing to do. I had no desire to touch her nose.
But for definition purposes, what is the difference in reaching versus attempting?
To me, if I attempt to touch someone's nose, it would mean that I actually want to physically touch her nose.
That's my only question.
Which is not the case.
Anything else, Mr. Sweet, before we close the hearing?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Hagedorn, before we close the hearing?
The only thing that I was going to add is just that the video won't show how Ashley was made to feel. Curtis was terminated for not actually grabbing Ashley, but it was about the perception of the way that Ashley was made to feel, and then Curtis's actions after she pushed him away. So it has nothing to do with whether he physically did or did not touch her nose specifically, but the way that she was made to feel, and then his actions beyond that.
And did you talk to her about how she was made to feel?
That was written in her statement, which is what prompted the investigation. I was not at the store. I was covering another store, so no, ma'am, I did not speak with her. But that's what led to the termination.
And was a copy of her statement, was that submitted?
It was sent with the pictures as well, but it, for whatever reason, wasn't submitted either. But it kind of goes hand in hand with what's written on page 9, because it doesn't specifically say that Curtis was terminated for touching her nose.
I'm going to disagree with that.
And your objection?
Yeah, my objection is on page 3, page 4, and page 9. It says that claimant inappropriately touched on 6, claimant inappropriately touched on page 7, in those little boxes, and then
sir, that's
on page 9.
That's from the employer's third-party representative. That's not considered evidence.
And the touching refers more to the bear hug, not the nose.
The bear hug?
Okay, just a moment. All right, Ms. Hagedorn, do you have anything else then?
No, ma'am.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Sweet?
There was no bear hug. I did not touch her.
And sir, you've already given that testimony. Do you have anything else that you've not already told me?
Not that I can think of. I don't agree with the fact that they say that I was terminated because I took this the whole time thinking that I was terminated for touching her nose when I did not touch her nose. And if I was terminated for not touching her nose, isn't that kind of silly? I mean, that's a good reason to terminate someone is because he didn't touch her nose.
Okay. I'm going to close the hearing record. I want to thank the parties for appearing, and you should receive a copy of my decision in the mail within the next 2 weeks.